Hello, everyone, and welcome to another small screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian Mush. I am joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1, Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm. This is written by Jon Favreau and Noah Kluwer, directed by Kevin Tancharian. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say. I'm really bad with names, and this one I actually just realized right now I was about to read it. I haven't read this word before, so anyway, I think it's Tancharian is his name. He is the second different director, other than Rodriguez, who we had the first and the third week.
Mm-hmm.
So this is someone new. He has a history. I'm just looking it up on IMDb right
He
now.
has a history.
He has a history of working on such hits as Fame, Mortal Kombat Rebirth, Glee 3D, Agents
I'm
of
sorry.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
Did you just say Glee 3D? That
That's
exists?
correct. Glee 3D, the concert movie.
Okay. I have no words.
He's also directed 16 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so that's cool. And he's worked on The Flash and Arrow and Inhumans, so lots of TV work. This is a Supergirl. Oh man, so he's been everywhere. At least in the DCU. So anyway, I thought he did a pretty good job overall. Nothing to, I would say, write home about. But anyway, new director, worth mentioning. Before we get into everything, I'll just quickly mention to follow us on Twitter at Tower Babblecast. That's BABBLE. You can also find us at facebook.com/Tower Babblecast, and you can head over to our website, towerbabble.ca, to find everything we do, including our flagship show, which is the Tower of Babel podcast, where we talk about more than just Star Wars, although Star Wars is sometimes also discussed. So that's the usual pitch. Also, I would remind folks that if you do like the show and you want to help support the show, you can do so by going over to patreon.com/Tower Babblecast, and for as little as $5 a month, you can help keep the lights on here, literally and figuratively. And you get some bonus content for your trouble. We do a monthly film club. Rachel, do you remember what the movie we were supposed to do this month? I don't remember.
It's Misery.
Misery, right. Yeah. Okay. And what movie did we do last month? Dr. Sleep.
Dr.
Right?
Sleep, yes.
That was a fun one. And actually, you know what? They're all fun. There's a whole back catalog of those, starting with we did Jurassic Park for the very first one, which I think we hadn't quite worked out the kinks of the format yet. So maybe don't listen to that one. But you can go check that all out at Patreon. So patreon.com/Tower Babblecast. All right. Let's talk about Star Wars. Let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1, Episode 4, The Gathering Storm. Let's talk about the title, The Gathering Storm. I thought it's a very cool sounding title, but ultimately, I didn't really get the impression that there was a quote unquote gathering storm. I don't know if you felt that in this episode.
I mean, kind of like metaphor, obviously it's metaphorically, but
right.
I understand.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I understand what they're getting at. I'm not too sure if they're trying to reference Boba Fett gathering his own group, or whether they're more talking about the Pikes are kind of gathering a storm of war, right? With
guess
everybody else, but
right.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's fine. It's funny because I'm hot off of reading the new the High Republic books. And in there's a whole group called the Nile, and they call themselves storms and clouds and strikes and stuff. It's kind of how they
weird.
So they call themselves the Storm, and they roll in and just fuck shit up, right? So it's when you see something else called the Rising Storm, to me, it just immediately makes me think of something way more badass, but it wasn't. So.
Well, it's not even that because again, you're right. I think there's some obvious analogs to Boba's collecting his army. He's getting his deputies in order, his captains, and he's there's also there's a whole flashback sequence of him recruiting Fennec and all this other stuff. But it implies this idea of because a storm is typically bad. Right?
Yeah, more chaos.
Right, and if we're talking about Boba Fett stuff, he's supposed to be the lead of the show. It's not him gathering his stuff wouldn't be considered a storm, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
So it probably then is referring to the Pikes, but they're not seen in this episode. They're hardly even mentioned. They're talked about a little bit, but that's it. It feels weird to me. Also, This episode seems to have the last flashback we'll see. And I don't know if that's necessarily true unless, when Boba Fett says, I have some debts or whatever he needs to collect or whatever he talks about midway through the episode. If he's just referring to collecting his armor and that's what we see him do throughout season 2 of The Mandalorian, then fair enough. But I feel like there could be more to it. There could be something else to it. But that being said, it also does jump past everything from Mandalorian season 2 and just replays the footage from that post-credit scene from the end of season 2. So that's weird to me.
I was under the impression that this was an episode that kind of tidies up all those little flashbacks so that we have like, okay, what was he sort of doing in those 5 years in between? And especially when he gets out of the back to tank there and it's like, oh, you're completely healed. It seemed like he was having those flashbacks only in the tank, and so if he doesn't even be in the tank, he won't really have them. Right. So
that very specific line of "you're completely healed," even though he has a big scar across his face, is so funny to me.
Hey, scars don't heal. Even Anakin had a scar. Forever,
that's true.
So.
That is true. But scars don't heal is not a
not in
thing.
Star Wars. Cool scars don't heal. Cool scars don't heal in Star Wars. It's just not odd.
Yeah, the Bacta can heal you, but it can't heal scars. That's fine.
No.
I was gonna mention that I made a mistake and I need to clarify something. Okay. There's 7 episodes in the season, not 6. I've been saying there's been 6. Basically since the beginning of our recaps.
Yeah, you have.
And that's a lie. I'm
Which
sorry.
had me a little worried, to be honest. I mean, 7 is better.
Is 7 much better? I don't know. Like,
we'll see. If we get some longer ones. But 6, I was kind of like already a little bit like, ooh, we only have, a couple episodes left?
Well, now we still only have, 5, 6, 7, we have 3 episodes left. So, that's not...
so crazy. But...
It's really not... And there's been a lot of discourse, I think, around this idea of... It's maybe not a lot, but there has certainly been some talk I've seen on Twitter and other places that this season didn't need to be presented to us in this way. Like, if we're going to end the flashbacks essentially halfway through the season, why didn't we just tell the story in chronological order? Like, let's start with him,
that's
the way
it
starts, like, with him escaping the Sarlacc pit, living with the Tuskens, going through all that stuff, and then getting to the point at where we are now, where there's a little bit more context, because we've been working with this idea of like, oh, Boba Fett wants to be a crime lord for some reason, and they kind of clear it up in this episode why that is, but we just didn't have any of that context, and they didn't provide it to us for 3.5 episodes, so it's really odd to me, and I think it would have been really cool actually. To do it in a chronological order. People might have said it's possible that they could have got a little bit of backlash and, like, oh, this is taking too long. But you could have maybe condensed
that's true,
down to 2 episodes, and then with the second episode being like this big cliffhanger of like, oh, we're coming right back to, we're going to catch up to modern day. That would have been cool if you even presented the first 2 episodes at the same time. But I digress, because we're here to talk about the show as it is, not as we wish it could be. But yeah, I just think I didn't first come up with that idea that it should have been presented chronological order, but I definitely agree with it. To me, it makes no sense. So, by the way, this episode's its logline, true to form for this series, only like 5 letters long. Boba partners with Fennec Shand. So 5 words, not letters.
I was gonna say.
But so Boba partners with Fennec Shand. It's like, which by the way is dumb, because we've seen him working with Fennec now for like multiple seasons of television. So it's a weird thing to say. But anyway, let's start with the flashback. We start with him in flashback, and technically he's in the back to tank, and then we quickly cut to flashback. And he's riding a bantha. There's a lot of that in the first part of this episode. And we see the bones of a bantha, I guess maybe calling back to kind of the bones of the Krayt Dragon from Return of the Jedi. Mm-hmm. Boba scopes out Jabba's palace with his rifle. We see a lot of Nikto guards. And he decides that there's too many guards. So he decides he's not gonna take it on today. We don't actually even know why he's there at first. They don't mention it, but apparently it's to get his ship. He wants his ship back. But we don't learn that till later. So we then transition from daytime to night. It was this cool transition where you see the two suns, and then it kind of does the wipe, and then you get 3 moons, which I guess I've never really considered. I've never thought about how many moons Tatooine has, but it's at least 3. And they're like close together like that, which could just be that, some sort of like coincidence. Maybe they're not always like that, like the suns are. But so anywho, that's interesting. That's something new about Tatooine that we learn for all these years. That many moons at least. And then we see a Bantha's giant tongue. What did you think of this Bantha stuff that he's got going?
You mean him like riding it all the time?
He's riding it, then he's petting it, then he's like, he goes and tells one to make Bantha babies.
I thought it was cute. I told you, I kind of like this softer side of Boba Fett, where he's a little bit more, like I said, in our last episode,
right?
The typical dad who didn't want a dog but now loves his dog. I like this sort of sweeter side to Boba Fett, where how he's like very cute with animals and has a lot of love for them, and I don't know.
It's certainly a way to endear you to him as a hero. I love when he feeds the. By the way, this idea that Banthas eat like whatever makes sense, I guess, because like any animal probably will take whatever they can get on Tatooine. But
Banthas,
the idea of it,
them just being on Tatooine in general, it seems weird to me.
Like, what do they eat?
Well, no, just because they're so hairy and it's a desert. So hairy. Yeah. But I get it. Like, deserts are like, it's cold at night. I don't know, but they're funny.
Let's not think about the like how they evolved that way or
no,
why
I know,
they
they're
exist.
Alien species,
but I do like when he feeds it like meat, and it's like it's got people teeth, so it's like weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's so weird. And then he's like, "There you go, enjoy." And I'm like, that's such a funny like line reading, and I'm like, okay, I really enjoyed that. And then he's like, in the middle of like scoping out the the mission, like, we're gonna infiltrate, and then he's like, okay, see you later, buddy.
Yeah, he's like, okay, go, time to go.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
Go make Bantha babies.
It's just sweet. Such like to me, like what's weird about this show is like its odd pacing. Like there's these moments of action, and there's like these long sequences of no dialogue, and just like wandering through deserts, and like to the point where it's like we've seen him riding Banthas like so. There's probably like 6 or 7, 8 individual separate shots of him riding a Bantha in some direction or other on the Dune Sea. So it just I don't not like it. I just find it just odd the way that this show is set up. It like same with the way I'm thinking about like the way that they did these flashbacks, unnecessary in some cases. So I don't know. What did you make of this kind of early sequence with him just kind of wandering around before he finds
wandering around? Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that they probably could have cut to it a little quicker. But the Bantha stuff didn't bug me. I do like the occasional little bit of the goofy breaks we get, and the little bit of the different quirks we can get with characters, because I mean, even later on when he's talking to that Bantha and he's like kind of shooing it away, Fennec's kind of giving him like a side eye, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, so even she's like she knows who Boba Fett is, and she's kind of okay, like, I guess you're just a kind of a sweetheart a little bit. Interesting.
Right. Because she's like, why are you doing this now?
Yeah, exactly. Like, shouldn't you wait? And he's just like,
do we have work to do? So anyway,
I mean,
he's out in the desert, and he sees the flares, these flares in the sky, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then we see a second one, and then we hear the little Mando theme flute situation playing, right? You're like, oh, interesting. So what we're led to believe is that this sequence where he sees the flares and then goes off to see what's going on, and then finds Fennec, which is they even reuse some of the footage of him walking up to her body. From the first season of Mandalorian, where people suspected it was Boba Fett, but they hadn't confirmed it at that time. They had used the sound of the spurs, the
spurs,
boots,
to
kind of like, oh, that's definitely Boba Fett. That's how kind of people figured it out. This version didn't have that sound effect.
No, I noticed
which I guess makes some sense. And I've seen some people online get a little like weirded out about this. Like they're like, oh, why would they change it or whatever? It's like, well, it doesn't really make sense for him to make that sound unless he's wearing his armor at the very least,
Exactly. Yeah.
So this used it for a little hint for you, for fans in this.
Exactly. It was kind of more like a little Easter egg thing as opposed to it needing to be, I don't know. Those I understand like the nitpicks, but sometimes I'm like, okay, just
Well, that's what they are. They are nitpicks.
Just let it go.
It doesn't matter. So
because even if he had, it would have been gone both ways. It doesn't matter if they used the spur sound or didn't. If they kept the spur sound, you would have had the other half of the internet be like, "Oh, why is there spur sounds? Because he doesn't have his armor." Blah blah blah. Like,
that's
it wouldn't matter.
You're doing a very good neckbeard impression.
Yes, that is my neckbeard impression.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone who has neck beards.
Sometimes if I don't shave enough, I sometimes get a little bit of neck beard.
I have never had a neck beard.
So. What? It's only because your mustache doesn't grow that far down.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
very blonde.
Yeah, that's right. So it turns out that that sequence happening at the same time as that speeder bike thing that they did in season 1 of Mando. So that's kind of cool. I like when things happen at the same time as other things and you're aware of that. I always appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that also implies that when we did that previous flashback last week and he's coming into Mos Eisley and we see the lady with the curly hair, I can never remember her name, that was also the same. It was about the same time that Mando would have been there. So
yeah, that makes sense.
So there's some crossover there as well. I find that interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're slowly starting to like catch up in these flashbacks. Like you're starting like to gain time, right?
That being said, it's implied that he was with the Tuscans for like multiple years, like
yes, I would
at
assume.
least 5, maybe like 4 to 5 years. And I
don't know how long he was in the Sarlacc for, but I would assume not years because you need to eat. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, worst case, like it's a week. I feel like. So he survives the Sarlacc, and then he's stripped of his armor, which he apparently doesn't remember.
Well, they hit him pretty hard.
Yeah. But like, also, like, what makes him think that they would be back in the Sarlacc? Anyway, we'll get to that later. But he's then with the Tuscans for like 5 years, but we got no indication. There's no hint. There's no information provided to us in the show other than that line of dialogue that would indicate that he was with them for that long. The way it comes off is that it's like weeks, months, maybe.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go as far as a year.
I wouldn't have said. I would have said maybe like a year, just because there was like a lot of like training and stuff involved. But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't have guessed that it was as long as it was either.
Yeah, I just feel like the show is using shorthand because it doesn't have time to spend that long, and I understand that. I really do. But like, I just wish the show was a little bit more patient with. And I take this, by the way. I feel this way for Marvel's shows. Less so with Marvel shows, because I think WandaVision and Loki, which both set up these kind of like long tail mysteries, pay them off over a long time. These Star Wars shows do not seem to give the audience as much credit. It's like, no, we're going to explain everything to you over and over again. Like, I just think about last week when they did that flashback to the explaining what the speeder bike logo like graffiti was.
Oh yeah, like the graffiti.
And I'm like,
I know what she's meaning. Yeah.
I'm like, why would we need this? I don't understand. Like, so this is where I feel like the show is just like, okay, let's just move it. Like, let's get through this stuff. But it's like, no, we can. It would have been cool to see a full episode, kind of exploring some of this stuff, giving us more time with the Tuscans, which would have made that scene where they were all killed way more impactful, which it's
well,
not,
you could have even had an episode like showing that and showing Boba. You know what I mean? Like
passage of time. You know,
yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Year 2,
especially with Star Wars fans too. It's like we don't really need like most people who kind of watch it are, you know, very kind of active in the Star Wars realm and like watching things. I'm just saying, like, we don't need to be like babied and have things constantly reminded. Whereas with Marvel, like, I think Marvel's a little bit more passive. Like, I might watch something of Marvel and need a little bit more like hints and a little bit more like have things spoon fed to me.
Well, I think
I do in Star Wars, but
that's what's happened in Star Wars is spoon feeding you, and then in Marvel's like just ask you to just keep up.
Marvel's like figure it out.
Yeah, like keep up. Stuff's happening. Like let's go, right?
It's like just keep watching. Yeah.
And this is more like, hey, in case you missed it, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what this stuff. You know, like it's just basic stuff that we're told over and over again, which I feel like isn't necessary because if you're a casual Star Wars fan, you'll just go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
Cool, that's cool, right, or whatever. And then if not, if you're more into it like us, then you'll get more out of it, right? And
Yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
that's the given, that's the kind of the balance that these shows try to strike. But I just feel like for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, Boba Fett is not giving the audience credit, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't understand why that is. So anyway, we're still at the first scene, so let's move on. let's move on here. So anyway, they find he finds Fennec's dying body, and he takes Fennec on the back of a bantha. He takes her to a mod parlor on the outskirts of Mos Eisley. We get this funky bass line as he arrives there. It's kind of a cool look. You get to look at even more of these mods. I guess the idea is that the 4 of them that we originally saw or whatever riding those Vespas last week are part of a larger gang. So there's more of them. There's a guy with funky eyes and some cool stuff. I thought those actually looked way cooler than what we saw last week.
Agree.
And then we see this guy in there. He's the modifier guy, and he's played by someone named Thundercat, who is, I guess.
Shut up.
What do you mean?
His real name, like his real screen name, is Thundercat?
That's what it says here on IMDb.
Wait, is that his character name or his
no.
Human name?
The human name is Thundercat. He's playing Modifier.
That's
so Thundercat is, I'm just going to pull this up on IMDb because Thundercat is an actor and composer known for Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Lovecraft Country, and Insecure. So he was in. This would be the only thing we would recognize him from, but I guess he's mostly known for a musician. He's a bass player.
Cool. Okay, that makes more sense for the funky name.
Yeah, that's his, and that's actually his bass line that's playing at the beginning when you come in there. So I think that's a kind of a cool little Easter egg, and I really like the music that they had vibing inside there. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, I like this kind of vibe in general. It gave me very kind of not grungy, but like tattoo parlor vibes, you know, like kind of the same way when he says like, "Oh yeah, no walk-ins, right? Like appointments only." Like I kind of laughed. I was like, "Oh yeah, like it kind of giving you that." You know, how do I word this that's not gonna like offend people?
I wouldn't worry about it. There's not enough people listening to
well, no, it's offended. Just like there's certain like tattoo shops where if you just like walk into them, they're not gonna give you the time of day, right?
Oh yeah,
like give you the ones over and be like, like no. Or like there's like a respect thing in that in the
you
tattoo
can't just
culture.
Exactly. Listen, we're not. You can't just walk in. My time is valuable.
No, you can't just be like, like walk in and be like, give me hand tattoos, and then they look at you and they're like, no, you have no visible tattoos. We're not doing that. You know what I mean? But that's kind of the vibe I got from this.
Wait, you can't just as a first tattoo, you can't get hand tattoos? Is that against the rules?
Not unless you're like a kid in LA and you're a SoundCloud rapper. Then you can get face tattoos from some people.
Cool. All right,
to be a very specific person.
So he says the line, "Aren't you a little old to be here?" Which of course is a reference to, "Aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper?"
Oh yeah.
I presume that's what that is. Either that or it's a reference to the Uncharted trailer where Marky Mark makes that joke. But that's probably not what it is. So I like that line, and then there's this. There's like he just drops a bag of money. He's like, "Oh, why didn't you start with that?" Which I I always appreciate a good like I'm easy to be bought type joke. And so he gets to work on saving Fennec. She's now part machine, which is really cool. So we see this cool vibro scalpel. We also see that he has like this hand that he can like switch out like parts for. His regular hand, super battle droid hand. So that's cool. And then he's got this like multi-tool with a saw, a flamethrower, and like pincers or whatever. It's super cool.
Yeah.
And then I love at the end how Boba's like, "Aren't you gonna close her up?" He's like, "Cover up that cool machinery? No way."
Yeah, hey. Well, which is so true because like most of the other things we've seen when someone does get like a modified body part, you know, like Luke and Anakin, it's always covered. Or I guess Anakin still has a metal hand, actually. Never mind. He
wears a glove over it, though.
Yeah. But most other people tend to, like, cover it up, right? So I like these guys have a different view on it, being like, no, like, we're proud of it. It looks badass. So it's sweet. I didn't realize basically, like, her whole midsection is now, like, pistons and tubes and stuff.
Yeah, there's the blue liquid and there's a red liquid. It's not clear what the blue liquid is.
Obviously coolant.
Hydraulic fluid.
One of them is coolant.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the red is blood?
I
maybe?
don't know. Probably,
yeah. Yeah, okay.
You're gonna need some kind of
all the
coolant in
blood
there.
goes from the top half to the bottom half. It goes through that one tube.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. That does make sense. It doesn't, but let's not worry about it. So Fennec wakes up and Boba's opening up a black melon for her. She's a little disoriented. She wants to know what happened. He kind of gives her a brief explanation. And then he says, you better drink this black melon. It takes some getting used to. But then this weird line where he says, in time, you start to crave it. And I was like, weird.
Interesting.
I was like, really weird. Anyway, he calls her the master assassin Fennec Shand of the Midrim.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that was cool?
I did, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. So, I mean, obviously he knows who she is just by looking at her, right? So,
yeah.
And it was already established that she was that when we were watching Mandalorian. Well,
yes.
yeah, like it was.
She's been operating now for many years.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. By this point, yeah. So, no, I liked it. It's gotta give her dues.
I like the reference to the Midrim.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about Star Wars is that we spend like 90% of our time in the Outer Rim.
Yeah.
and there's like the in the prequels we spent a lot of time on Coruscant, which is obviously in the core.
Right.
But we basically spend no time at all on any Midrim planet ever, like basically ever. And it's kind of odd. I'm wondering if they're going to maybe spend more time in that area.
Yeah.
Eventually, I mean, this is what the 15th thing said on Tatooine, so maybe we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. But I do like the reference to the Midrim, and I would like to kind of see it a little bit more. To me, the Midrim, maybe why they don't spend more time there. It's like the suburbs of the galaxy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like the Midrim is always. It just seems like it would be very quiet. Like, doesn't have the busy politics of the core, and it doesn't have like the wild, wild west outlaw shit happening that the Outer Rim does. So that you don't need people going there as much. It just kind of.
It's the white picket fence area,
hanging out in the middle. Just
everyone in there is like
ignored.
thriving. They're all they're having a great time, living great lives, right?
Very like middle class, Just
But like presumably there's a bunch of like big planets, like big cities and stuff in there, but we just never see it. So it's just I find that odd. Anyway, so at first Fennec thinks that Boba's there to take her in alive. That's why he was saved her. Oh, I'm worth more alive, so that's obviously why you want me, right? And so he tells her his name and in a brief backstory about the Tuskens, and tells about how he tried to help them, and then that the speeder bike people, the speeder bikes killed all the Tuskens, and he feels really bad. And then there's this really interesting line where I thought was super cool, really well read. Speeder bikes defeated Tuskens. That's highly unlikely, right? I love that, like, and which is kind of touches on what we were talking about last week, which is this idea that like it just seems so much more likely that the Pikes were
100%
at fault for that murder, those murders.
That's what I mean. It's like Boba went in there to that bar with a stick and beat 6 of them to the inch into their lives. So yeah, it's that exact same thing that we were talking about last time, where it's like, yeah, they definitely didn't do that on their own. There's no way. Yeah, and like Boba was never really scared of them. Like even beforehand, he was like, "Oh, we'll come back at you tenfold." I mean, no, he said that to the Pikes, but still, it's like he said that to the Pikes. Never mind, just a bunch of speeder gangs that he beat up. Like, yeah.
So he asked her to help recover his fire spray gunship, and so this is where people start getting annoyed. He calls it his fire spray gunship. He doesn't call it Slave One, but
okay.
Let's remember here, people, he's talking to essentially a stranger. By the way, I love that when he said when she's like Boba's dead and like just doesn't believe that that's him. Right. I like that, by the way. And he would then, I guess, you don't necessarily need to refer to it by its class, but I guess he does. He could have just called it, "I need your help recovering my ship." Would have worked, but they wanted to work in the fire spray name eventually, so here it is, spoken aloud. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that his ship is not named what it is anymore. I think there was a really great point brought up in the Screen Crush recaps that I watched. I think I really agree with that. He says, Ryan Airy says, it's such a wasted opportunity if you're going to change Boba Fett's ship name to not make it like a thing, right? Like if you're going to say it's going to be, it's always been called Slave One, whatever. If you want to change it, that's fine. I don't like. I'm not gonna make a mountain out of a molehill here. But if you're gonna change the name, like do it in the world and make it interesting. Like, you know, like say something about how the slave thing doesn't really vibe with him anymore or whatever. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
He wouldn't have even named the ship. It would have been his dad, presumably.
Yeah, exactly. That's completely true. Especially after having this whole big arc with the Tuskens and stuff, you could totally take something out of like the Tusken culture or whatever.
100%.
Like, you know, 100%. Yeah, you're completely right that they really could have used that as an opportunity because we are trying to get this character development of Boba Fett. So why not?
Right. It would have been really, I think, satisfying actually to see him grow and decide that was not something he wanted to represent anymore. But there's still a chance that we'll get that, possibly, but it just seems like who would he even talk to that would know the name of the original ship so he could then rename it?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask too.
Which is kind of weird.
Like, does anybody in the Star Wars universe really know the names of other people's? That's
Slave One has never once been said out loud in Star Wars.
I was going to ask that as well. It's not like the Millennium Falcon, right? Like
no.
Yeah, like a lot of the times people don't know what other guys name their ships. People half the time don't even name their ships in Star Wars. We just need names for them.
Yeah. So, anywho, that's the state of that. I want to address it, but so he offers to say, "Hey, you help me get my ship back, and your debt to me for saving your life is cleared." Right? And she's like, "Okay, that's fair. Fine with me." So they head back to Jabba's palace. And she releases this little mini probe droid.
I liked it.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just making this up in my brain because I was like, I saw it float up and I was like, I made the little sound that the probe droids make, and he kind of makes like a mini squeaky version of that sound.
Yeah, he makes a little a fizzing, not a fizzing sound, but you know what I mean, a little zoomy zoom sounds.
Yeah.
Which you think would be like, why would you? No offense, Star Wars, but if you're having like a sneaky droid,
why is it bright red lights on it?
Yeah. That's the same thing with those other stupid probe droids that come around from like I can't remember what they're called. I guess it's a probe droid that are always like
droids.
Well, they're always just spying on like the Republic, Republic.
Yeah.
And they're just like creeping around a rock or something, and like they always have big red eyes and they're making noise.
Yeah, they make those like round sounds. Yeah. So it's like I agree with you 100%, but this one's even funnier because it's like the lights are so bright on it. Yeah. It's like all it would take is like the slightest movement for someone to catch it out of the corner of their eye and be like, "Oh, what's this floating ball here?"
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, so it does a little sneak. It sneaks through Jabba's palace, and we actually get a little map of how the palace is laid out, which I think is fun.
I thought that was cool.
It's just a really cool, and like it looks like a video game. You got like the villains like little red dots on there. And so back outside, once they've kind of collected this information, we get the scene where he says goodbye to his bantha. We kind of talked about that already. Go make bantha babies. And then Fennec and Boba talk about around the fire. There's a lot of fireside chats in this episode. So they talk beside this fire, and they're talking about how she's working on her blaster rifle. They're talking about how he wants to get his armor back. You know, like, oh, what's next for you? You know, well, I want to get my armor back. And then he says he wants to get revenge on the bloated pig who double-crossed me. And he gets, presumably he's talking to Bib Fortuna about Bib Fortuna here. But
I would assume so, yeah.
I don't really understand what he's talking about because how did Bib Fortuna double-cross him exactly?
That's kind of what I was wondering too. So, and I wasn't too sure. And I mean, like Adam has watched more or like read more of the graphic novels and more of the some of the comics than I have, and he wasn't too sure either. Like he was like, I wonder what they were referring to, and I guessed that it was Bib, but I just said, I'm like, I don't really
also
know.
Has he seen him since? Like, how does he know he's fat at this point? Like, that's the other thing. Like, it's just a weird, like, it's a cool line, but oddly placed. Like, it doesn't really make sense. So, whatever. Unless maybe he's talking about someone else, and we will have yet to see it,
could be.
But
very much
probably not. So, and then Fennec says this interesting line. She said, "You want to take on a Gatra," which is another interesting word to use I'm going to see if I'm going to define it here and see what it says. Gotcha doesn't have anything. So I don't know what that. I presume it means like crime boss.
Yeah.
Essentially. So, and then Boba says he's tired of working for idiots who will get me killed.
Yeah.
I know there's been some people on Twitter be like, oh, he's talking about Vader. He's calling Vader an idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess technically, but like, it's weird that you guys got very specific with that. Like, I thought that
like he's a
much.
bounty hunter. He's been hired by tons of different people and tons of different jobs. But yeah, I did see that people were like, "Oh shit, Vader's gonna come."
Shit. Yeah, like what do you
Vader
like?
Doesn't care.
Vader doesn't care. First of all, he's dead at this point, and second of all, he doesn't care if someone calls him an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
Nor would he know. So it doesn't like anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that was a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of a reach. Like I didn't get the impression that when he says, because like there's I think there's moments in Star Wars where you can say, oh, he's thinking about this specific thing. Like you look at Obi-Wan in episode 4, he's talking about, Anakin, Luke's father, talking about the time, the Jedi, the age of the Jedi, more civilized age, all that kind of stuff. You can clearly like, oh, he's thinking about these things. And we've seen videos of people cut those together, and it's really interesting. I think if you did that with this and you then cut to him saying, Vader saying, no disintegrations, it'd be like, what? It wouldn't make it doesn't really track.
No.
To me, it's just a bit of a reach, but the point comes across to me anyway.
Yeah, well, like he kind of even explains himself a little bit later, just saying like, aren't you tired of working for people? How does he word something about? Aren't you tired of working for people who like don't think things through or whatever?
Yeah,
right?
He talks about it. At the next fireside chat.
Yeah,
they talk about that.
Yeah.
So I'll get to that in a second. So. He talks about also how he was ready to leave bounty hunting behind after the Tuskens took him in as one of their own. That this also plays into that conversation later where he's talking about you can only get so far without a tribe, which it does provide context for why he's doing what he's doing.
Absolutely,
I guess.
Yeah.
But it's pretty paper thin in terms of motivations to me. It's like, okay, I understand you don't want to be. He says he has lots of credits, right? Credits aren't a problem. Well, then just retire. You're 60-something years old. Like this.
I guess, but he's trying to get his stuff back. Like he's
not technically the actor's 60-something years old.
Yeah.
Boba's technically at this point he's like 40-something or early 50s or something like that.
Right.
So, but yeah.
I understand. I kind of understand his motivations of, I guess the way that I was looking at it was because he just came from this sort of a bond he made with the Tuskens, and he kind of saw how they lived their lives and how they protected each other and treated each other. He was just like, okay, like that is something that I kind of want, instead of working for people that don't give a shit if I die.
Well,
doing
okay,
it. They're just
fair
paying
enough.
me.
But then why a crime family?
Yeah, that's true. That's all
he knows, I guess.
Well, he's like, what am I going to do? Go be a good guy as Boba Fett when people know that I'm just like this notorious bounty hunter? Like, I don't know. He's like, he probably has to establish at least some kind of dominance so that people don't come after him and try and kill him for whatever.
That's true. I mean, he does talk about how people thinking he's dead has a certain advantage.
Yes, yes.
So I can understand that. Anywho, there's this infiltration sequence. They go in to get the ship back, and Boba and Fennec sneak in through the sewer. There's this cool like metal cutting chalk thing that Fennec has, and then they come in through the kitchen. There's this funny scene with two droids cooking. One of them is a droid we saw from Return of the Jedi, the one that tells R2 to get used to serving drinks or whatever.
Right.
And the other is a type of droid similar to the one that we saw aboard the Star Cruiser that Anakin and Padme take in Episode 2. That has like a bunch of like arms for cooking.
Yeah.
So
I was laughing and calling it Chef Grievous.
Yeah, well, that's the joke that the show's making. So,
oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's a coincidence. Yeah.
No,
so
of course not.
They open the grate. They're like, "Oh, what is that? A rat?" And then they go check it. It's like, "I don't think it's a rat." And then there's this like, it's just a pretty silly sequence, like and intentionally so. But I think it mostly works. Like it's the Boba Fett and Fennec are taking it serious enough, and the humor comes from the droids. In a
right, yeah,
or are silly. So, but I think that's the kind of the perfect balance, right? They're not just, and the droids aren't just cracking jokes left and right. They're just funny by how they move and what they do, and
how
they get killed and stuff.
I really want to see if I was a bigger Twitter person, I would make memes just because we have worked in the restaurant
Right.
industry for a while. But it's like when the droid starts swinging around all his knives and he's all pissed. It's like, oh, like when you ask the kitchen to mod something for a customer and they just get so like just mad for no reason.
Oh, what? Come on, that's not on the menu. Whatever. Yeah.
You're just Maybe I'll
like,
do it
I'm gonna
one day.
spit in it. Like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
No, you won't. You better not.
No one take my idea. This is how I'm gonna become Twitter famous.
That's okay. Well, I'm excited to see it. I'll retweet it with the Tower Babble account. Whopping couple hundred followers. So there's this chef droid does the spinning knives, like honestly, to the point where like this is obviously a reference to General Grievous. Like it has to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I thought that was really funny. I was like, did I miss a joke where Boba says hello there? I feel like I really wish that we'd seen that.
Oh man, that would have been great. But,
and then
maybe it would have been too much.
It would have been maybe too much. But I would have been there for it, right?
Yeah.
So
I cackled when that happened. It was great.
Yeah, so they take out the droids, and then we also see that there's a third droid who's the rat catcher, and it's one of those bunny droids.
I love the bunny droids.
In the past on the Clone Wars and stuff. So first time in live action, I thought it looked really good.
I know. I always think, like, and maybe just because this has happened, I think, in Clone Wars, I always thought they just had bombs in them.
No, right. They're
when
just
he runs into that grate and he flicks off his little switch, I was like, oh, he's going to explode because he has a bomb in him.
Yeah, it turns out he just turned himself off.
Yeah, which I love that. I love it. Yeah. He was just like, nah, just no,
I'm not dealing with this. Yeah.
And Boba just puts him in a trash can.
Yeah, Boba's chasing him around, and there's like this, like it's just it's very like Muppets to me. Like,
I was gonna say it's very like Tom and Jerry, right?
Yeah,
like, just super.
So he's chasing him around, and he catches him, and then he says, "Do you know who I am? I'm Boba Fett."
Yeah.
To a droid.
Yeah.
Why does he say that? I don't understand.
Well,
this is another like.
They're in Jabba's palace. Like Boba's been in there before.
Right.
But I mean, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
What
the little bunny cook droid probably doesn't know.
What like also like what point are you gonna make? Like what point are you making here?
Yeah.
I don't get it. So he flips himself off. He flips off his little switch. And Fennec even gives him a funny look, which I think is like, are you done?
Yeah.
So Boba and Fennec, they arrive at the hangar and they find his ship along with a four-legged gonk droid, actually. So that's cool. But two Gamorrean guards arrive. They quickly knock them out, but apparently someone sets off the alarm. So there's this extended shootout sequence with a bunch of Nikto guards being killed. Like so many, like a lot of death. There's a lot of murders in this episode.
There is, yeah.
So one calls Fennec a Slimo. Of course, we talked about this before. That means slime ball. She uses like a barrel, like I get like just a barrel to hide behind the whole time. Yeah. There's like 50 guys, and she's just like hiding behind a barrel. I just felt like if we're gonna do this cool fight sequence, I just didn't think that was very dynamic. Like let's move around this. Let's use the space a little bit more.
Yeah, that's fair.
She does some spins and whatnot, but I just didn't think it just kind of looked a little silly at parts to me.
Yeah, I understand that. I think what they were just trying to get across was just how skilled she is, right? Because she's just sniping these guys out one by one, like it's pretty much nothing. So I didn't really mind the whole sequence, but I totally get what you mean, where it was like we could have had a little bit more movement and action in it.
Yeah, and like she does blow up the gonk droid. That's pretty cool. But poor Gonky.
Yeah, poor guy.
But there's been a lot of discourse online about how this show is basically just Boba Fett bumbling around and having Fennec clean up all his messes and be way cooler than him. And like, she's got all the street smarts and he's like, what kind of notorious bounty hunter are you? He doesn't seem to know anything. Right?
Yeah.
And I can understand that to some degree. I would like to see Boba Fett be a little bit more badass. I'm not sure why we're not seeing that, considering it's his name on the freaking show.
That's fair.
It's literally like every fight sequence, it's him either getting his butt kicked and someone else saving him, or he's not involved basically at all. Like here, he's just sitting in the ship the whole time. So I just feel like that's odd. We don't need to have Temuera Morrison in the armor if he's not capable of doing that action anymore at his age. Fair enough.
Right.
He's wearing armor. You can put anybody in there who can do stunts.
Oh yeah, no,
That's
I know
certainly
what
what they
you're
did
saying.
with Mando. So I like, to me, that's a
Well,
little weird.
I think I'm hoping that maybe they're just kind of just chalking it up to him still being kind of wounded, because at this
No,
point
he's
he's
now
still
fully
not.
healed.
Well,
Right.
now he is, yeah,
He
but
wasn't at that time. That's true.
at that point
That's
he
true.
wasn't, yeah. So it's still kind of yeah, I would just kind of chalk it up to that. But I mean, at the same time, I get it. He is supposed to be a little bit more badass than that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that like Fennec is notoriously more skilled than
Master
him.
assassin. Well,
Yeah,
is
like
that
she is. So it's like it makes sense that she is better than him at some of this stuff.
right?
But no, I totally get you're saying that you would like to see a little bit more, a little
Just want
less
to
of
see a little bit more hero
soft
stuff.
Boba, a
That's
little
all.
more,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Like
Which
if
hopefully
he's
maybe
gonna,
we'll see in the next couple, like going
yeah,
forward. Now that we
I
know he's fully
have to
healed.
assume. Yeah, have to assume
Yeah.
that, right? Like it's gonna
It's
come.
like, okay, he's got the armor, he's fully healed. It's like, all right, like now it's
Mhm.
go time. Hopefully we can see a little bit more of badass Boba.
Yeah. So anyway, she blows up the gonk droid. Boba takes off. He's just smashing into a bunch of walls.
I know. That also cracked me up.
Yeah, right. So it's she jumps on the ramp, and he even gets the gun stuck, so he can't even do anything with those. And he's just sitting there like, I can't even see anything, which is funny because like that is the biggest problem with that style of ship is like if you're sitting on the ground, you can't see anything on the ground.
Right, yeah, because you're like pointed straight up.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's trying to figure it out. He's like, you got to get the door open. So she does this cool like judo throw, and then jumps in the doorway and then shoots this like counterweight so that the gate opens. I thought that was super cool.
Oh yeah.
So they escape with the ship. Very satisfying. Yippee! He's got his ship back. So in the very next scene, we get this little. Well, it's actually not the very next scene, but it's coming right up. We're aboard the ship, and he says, next time we stick to the plan, Fennec says. And Boba's like, oh, next time, hey?
Yeah.
Like, oh, interesting. Maybe I'm winning you over. And so Boba says, he'll do the ship maintenance that they need because he wants to, keep his identity on the down low, right?
Right.
And then he tells Fennec that he can drop her anywhere because, and by the way, he said the same thing I feel like to Mando or whatever before about like, you can like I'll drop you wherever you need to be. Like once you have once we have a deal, I'll take you wherever you need to go. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll fly you across the universe if I have to. If that's what the deal. So I appreciate that about him. He's just like, don't worry about the gas money. You did your deal. Here we go. We're gonna get you to where you need to be. So she's
Great
like,
guy.
No, I'll settle. Well, Boba says he needs to settle a few scores, which is cool. But I guess that really means just the stuff from Mando season 2. Apparently, I would have liked to see if there was more there. I would have liked to have seen that. But she decides she's going to stick around for the ride. That's cool. I mean, of course she is because we know she does. But cool anyway.
Yeah.
And then we get this shot of this biker gang.
Yeah.
And they're just like out there, just going for a cruise. And then it cuts to this like front profile, like this front shot of them, and then you see the Boba ship just approaching from behind, and just no mercy, just destroys every single one of them. Not just the men, but the women and the children too.
Okay, there's no women and children on those
No,
bikes.
I know, but I was just but it just reminded me of the massacre that Anakin pulled.
Yeah.
But like, just like, hey, this is your hero, but he will murder this biker gang without remorse. He'll even use a missile on one for seemingly no reason. Like,
I mean, not no reason. They very much. I'm sure they had involvement in killing the Raider.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I understand why he killed them. 100%.
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
I just think it's funny that the missile's definitely overkill.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Probably purposeful, being like, no, like I told you, if this, if any of these Raiders, he told the Pikes if any of them got hurt or if there's any retaliation, he'd come back tenfold, and that is tenfold.
That's true. That's a good point. Touche. And I love how the scene is just like thrown into the middle of the episode. It just happens. It's very satisfying, and then there's just a shot of Boba and Fennec. They just nod at each other like, job well done. Job well done. And then the next scene was really weird to me. So they fly the ship over to the Sarlacc pit, and he talks about how he was trapped there all those years ago, despite it not feeling like that. This is like that one line that they give to explain it somehow. And he decided he's going to try to retrieve his armor, which I guess he doesn't remember that the Jawas took, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fennec thinks it was dissolved. And we get this line, right? It's not Beskar, right? Nothing can destroy Beskar.
Nothing.
That's really the the takeaway, right? So, it looks so like. Do you think did you get like? It just looks so silly having the ship like tilt like 3 feet off the ground.
like kind of like tip in there.
Stick its nose into the like. I don't even understand the like. It doesn't make sense. It looks like it flies inside, but also it's not. It's very confusing to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like it's just kind of like part of it is in there kind of looking in, right? Because I'm assuming the whole thought process is, well, like, we don't know if it's dead or not, so can't go in there, just
right. No, I get
can't
that
just
too.
belay down there, but yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying.
It just looks dumb. Like, I just
it looked a little weird.
And so unnecessary too, because it's like we already know he gets his armor back. What's the point of this scene?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
The point is to what? Kill the Sarlacc with
I guess so.
with a thermal detonator.
I thought he was just gonna do that in general. When they were pulling up there, I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe he's just gonna blow up a Sarlacc."
Well, yeah, that'll be like just like, hey, just get some revenge.
He's settling scores.
Right? Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
I like if that was what it was, that would have been totally fine with me. But this is like this. It's all just like. It feels so forced to me to like to try to find this armor that we know he already gets somewhere else. It just doesn't make sense. So
I can agree with that for sure. I don't know why they need to make him not remember that the Jawas took it, but
when does he like when is he like looking over the desert and he like remember that's the shot from Mando season 2, right? Actually, at the very end of the first episode, after he gets the armor back from Cobb Vanth.
Right,
and and then we see that shot of him, and it's like, oh shit, Boba Fett's back, and I was like, whoa, we knew it was him. Yes. Crazy, right? When does that happen then?
Yeah, like that would have been a little bit more cool to be kind of see him figuring out like, okay, Cobb Vanth has it, and then stalking that lead out, and then maybe seeing that scene would have been probably cooler. And then yeah, sure, fly by the Sarlacc and
blow it up.
A detonator in there.
I just see like again, these are just odd choices that I feel like are just unforced errors. The unforced errors to me are the most annoying stuff that a show can do. Like you can do crazy stuff. I'll get behind it. Basically, whatever you do, but just make it make sense, like internally. And this doesn't. So anyway, and they make it into this like they make it into this little action scene, and it doesn't have to be. So they're in there, they're looking around. They turn the lights on, then we see the Sarlacc, its little beak come out and like attack him. Which, by the way, the beak apparently was added for the special editions, which I didn't realize that there was no beak prior to that. So anyway,
okay,
there's a beak. So Sarlacc grabs a ship. They can't get away for some reason. The Sarlacc's stronger than a ship in full reverse. So Fennec has to do this like acrobatic move to. For some reason, she can't reach the buttons.
The buttons, yeah.
She can't reach the buttons, so she has to like release herself from the thing, do this whole like acrobatic sequence just so she can drop a seismic charge. But by the way, if it hadn't gone exactly the way it had, would have killed them.
Blown them up.
Yeah.
Hence probably why he's like, don't touch my buttons.
Yeah, next time don't touch my buttons, which is a great line. I will admit that is a great line. But like, and I do love I love a seismic charge as much as the next person. Okay. Mm-hmm. The sound is very satisfying. They did like a muffled version of it here.
Yeah.
I love how it like they kill the Sarlacc and it like ripples through the sand and then everything kind of sinks down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a kind of a cool visual. But other than that, I thought this scene was fucking stupid. And so anyway,
I wasn't as mad at it as you are, but
it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. All I ask bare minimum of a show is to maintain internal logic, and twice in this episode it seems like they don't. And you could even argue the Black Chrysanthemum stuff has been odd, that they don't have acknowledged any shared past, which is also odd. So whatever. So they kill the Sarlacc. Boba goes spelunking looking for his armor. Just finds a bunch of junk apparently. I would have liked to like have found something cool down there, brought something back, like a lightsaber or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Listen, it's a bit of a reach. I get it. That's a little fan servicey, but listen, you're just gonna come back knowing that his armor isn't down there. At least make it worth our while.
Yeah, that's true. At least have them find like something cool.
Right.
Yeah, I guess
So
so.
he gets burned by the acid all over again. Fennec tries to convince him to kind of let it go, the armor, and just find a back to tank instead, which I thought was a funny joke. And then there's another campfire scene. But any other thoughts on this? From finding the ship to all this stuff, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say no other like thoughts that we kind of haven't already
Covered,
like
yeah.
gone through. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We only have 12 minutes, so we got to keep moving here. So, back around the campfire, Fennec asks if he's serious about starting his own house. Boba, feels annoyed that he was hired so many times and almost killed because the people that hired him, who were in charge, were too stupid or too stubborn to come up with another solution. And Fennec actually makes a good point where it's like, well, then we wouldn't have had work, so I don't really know what you're complaining about.
Stupid people is how we make money, but
yeah, right.
But I understand like his side of it too, where it's like, okay, yeah, but we can still do jobs and that make us money, but do it in a smarter way, and like for people who give a shit, like right. So yeah.
Or again, in this case, he's like, let's just work for ourselves. Like we're smart enough. You're smart enough. We've got enough.
Exactly.
Especially you, because clearly you're the brains of the operation. So we're gonna need you. So he says, listen, you need brains and you need muscle. And Fennec, he says that she has both, which is a very nice compliment. And he offers her, exchange for, because she's like, I'm an independent contractor, which I think we hear her say in Bad Batch at some point or something like that.
I think so, yeah.
And he offers her loyalty in exchange for her help in starting the house. And he's basically like, listen, I can offer you the only thing that no one else can offer you, loyalty. And I'm like, that's the only thing you can offer that no one else can offer. Okay.
I liked that. I like that a lot, because he's saying, like, as opposed to every other time she gets hired to do something, that person really doesn't care whether she lives or dies. But he's saying, he's like, I will give my life to protect yours, like in exchange as well. As, like,
listen, I understand. It's fair. He could have just said, switch out loyalty for family. Like, I'll give you the only thing you've never had.
It's family, yeah.
Right, and it's a found family. That's all the Star Wars is like. I get that. Of course. Yes, totally understand. But this, to me, I feel like I might be a little bit more nitpicky on this, because to me, a lot of this whole motivation for Boba to get to where we are in the show in the contemporary timeline is a little. It's a little rickety to me. So gotcha. I'm kind of poking some holes here, because I feel like there's a lot it could come crashing down fairly easily. With a little bit of scrutiny. So fair enough. I appreciate him saying, listen, he's been struggling. And if we want to go back up to when he was a kid and when he first lost his dad, right? When he was a kid. And then he tried to kind of like, be tough and join up with these other bounty hunters when he was young. And he didn't really learn from them. He wasn't really treated with a lot of respect. And he's been kind of searching for, a place. He's never really belonged anywhere, right? He has the same face as every other clone, right? But never belonged as part of their brotherhood. And so now he felt finally like he was a part of something when he was with the Tuskens.
Exactly, yeah.
And now he's lost that, so he's like finally understands what that means. She says it softened him, but he says it made him stronger, because now he understands the value of creating these relationships in his life.
Oh, so exactly. Yeah.
I totally understand that. I do. I just feel like the show isn't doing a very good job of exploring, because those themes are there, but they're just, you really need to work for it, I think,
that's
to
fair.
kind of get to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And this is what I said, but he says that line before where he's like, you can only get so far without a tribe. I think that's a good line. Yeah. So then there's that brief flashback to him killing Bib Fortuna, like we didn't know that happened already. And it like I don't and then it's like, and then he catches up to where we are and you're all healed. So weird. Just again, the pacing and the choices here odd to me. So he gets out of the back to tank. Boba wakes to the shot of his armor, right? Because the idea, he's searching for his armor. Look, he has it. Duh, we knew that already. And a droid telling him he's completely healed. Fennec gives him a kind of a status update. The mayor's major domo is cooperating. Apparently, he's singing like a Yuzum. That's the species from the Return of the Jedi Special Edition, who like has like the really big mouth and is like
Okay, yeah.
So that's
really
a
good
Yuzum.
impression of it.
Thank
I
you.
liked it.
So there's no sign of the mayor though. They can't seem to find the mayor. The mods are combing the streets looking for the mayor. The mods, of course, are the gang of modified Vespa people.
Mm-hmm.
And Senor Vespa. I don't know if have you seen Luca?
No.
No. Okay.
Whatever that is.
The whole premise of Luca is that they want to win a bike race so they can win a Vespa. And like they call it a Vespa, and it's all set in Italian. And then there's the villain. They call him Senor Vespa. It's really funny to me. So Senor Vespa. It's a great movie. You should watch it. It's very, very good. Pixar. And then Boba decides he wants to make his presence known in town. So he decides to head into town. And then he makes this dumb line where he says, "Power hates a vacuum," which is a cool line, but doesn't make any sense in this. I guess, again, loosely it makes some sense. He's like, oh, without the mayor, someone's got to show their face around there to maintain order.
Yeah, but to maintain order.
The mayor doesn't really have that much quote unquote power that if he's not quote unquote around, that people are gonna start. And what are we talking about? A couple days here? Yeah,
right.
Cool line. I think "power hates a vacuum" is a cool line, but it's just weirdly placed and just odd in its usage here. So Garsa's sanctuary, they get to Garsa's sanctuary, and we see Trandoshans are winning at a table game. Mm-hmm. They're just like, they're cracking up, having a great time, it seems like. And then we pan the camera, and there's Black Chrysanthemum just sitting in a booth.
Love it.
Just drinking away and just growling as he watches. Now
he's just fuming.
Who doesn't like it? Now, for those who might not know, I think most Star Wars fans probably do, but it's hard to sometimes track these things over a long time. So,
right.
Trandoshans historically hunt Wookiees for sport.
Yes.
In fact, even in this very season of television, the Trandoshan leader, the one who comes to drop off his like honoring Boba Fett or whatever, gives him a Wookiee pelt.
Yeah.
Presumably looks like a baby Wookiee, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a pelt. So
it's really bad.
So he doesn't Black Chrysanthemum has reason to not like the Trandoshans.
Well, and plus I believe it was also I think there's Trandoshans that were involved in putting him in the gladiator fighting pits too.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're the ones who like captured him and whatever. So yeah. No,
so
he hates them.
He's just really not excited about watching these Trandoshans living it up. So he gets really angry. He starts throwing him around the bar. Boba arrives, and he just kind of starts watching. I love how he like arrives, and there's a guy get thrown into like a pot, right? Like I just like that. And then one of the Trandoshans tries to like bottle Black Chrysanthemum.
Oh my god, so good.
And it's pretty funny. So like that it just makes him angrier. So he picks him up. And then Garsa arrives. She's going to try to diffuse the situation by reminding him of how cool he was in the gladiator arena. And he talks about how his knuckle dusters are like feared among, more than blasters. And he mentions how he is a champion, but those less civilized times of the gladiator arena, they're over, and he doesn't have anything to prove. And it looks like he's kind of like calming down. And she says, you've been stacking up quite the tab here. So, if you leave everyone alone, I'll clear your tab. Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I appreciate what she's doing here, but I would say, in my personal opinion, it would be a bad idea to appease someone like Black Chrysanthemum by wiping their tab every single time they started throwing people around.
Yeah, set that precedent that as long as you fuck up enough shit in my establishment, you'll get all your drinks for free.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's not no. Like you would look, if I were her, I would like look to Boba and be like, "Can you deal with this?" Like, So
I get it that she's trying to do it in like her way, but I
sure.
know what you're saying.
I just think it's like that's a bad precedent to set, but anyway. So he seems to calm down at first. There's this kind of like lull, a slow moment. I appreciated this. I thought that was cool. Although I would have liked the lighting to be a little bit more moody. Like I don't know why they have like the incandescent light bulbs on.
Yeah, it's super bright. Yeah.
Is it last call? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever been in a casino before? It doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah.
So, he looks like he's about to calm down, and then it says, you know what? Never mind. Fuck it. And then rips off the Trandoshan's arm.
I also love that. But fun fact, Trandoshans can grow back their arms. So
that is a fun fact I learned after this episode, because I was like,
Yeah.
wow, they sort of seem to take it pretty cool. But that being said, I think there's a lot of that moment is kind of playing off of the episode 4 moment where Obi-Wan cuts off Honda Baba's arm.
Yes.
And I'm wanted on 4 systems or whatever he says. And
there's even like what doesn't Han say something like "let him win"? I something about "let him win."
Right,
Haven't you ever seen Wookiees rip a guy's arms off before?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's that's later on when he's talking about like, well, yeah, because when a Wookiee loses, he's known to rip someone's arms off or whatever.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's like that's so good. And so so this is kind of paying that off finally,
Yeah.
which is I really, to be honest, really appreciate. So I thought that was cool. I like how they shot the arm in a way that kind of again paid homage to that episode 4 scene. And then he has and then you have Garza be like, hit it, Max. So we do confirm that it is Max Rebo.
Yeah.
And still don't know how he survived, and I'm still unclear on whether or not he has legs or not. It's honestly not clear. Like if you look at him in this show, and even in Return of the Jedi, it's just like a torso on a pillow playing piano. So
I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know, but they haven't cleared that up.
George Lucas and ask.
Yeah, I won't. So
it's very important that we know.
He tells us they hit it.
Legs.
I like that they're just like, oh yeah, back to the party, right? And so like that's good. Boba follows out Chrysanthemum.
I did love, though,
offers him a job.
One hot minute here. I did love that after he rips off the Trandoshan's arms, he pays for his tab. Like, he doesn't care.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like,
he's like, it's not worth, listen, if I don't rip this guy's arm off, I can get all my drinks for free. But
yeah.
I'll just pay for it because I get to rip this guy's arms off.
He's just like, nah. He's like,
how
I'm
long
going
do
to
you think
rip
it takes
his
for
arms
them
off.
to regrow their arm?
I don't know. I think it takes a little while, but it's not like immediate. But
it's more like an inconvenience for that guy. It probably hurts.
It hurts for sure because it's obviously it hurts, but no, it is known that they can regrow, like not their heads, but like their arms. They can just grow them back, right. Which is a very cool thing about their. It's not
like that that alien from Men in Black who can regrow his head.
Yes, no. So I mean, like he ripped off the guy's arms. It obviously hurt, but it's like not really that big of a deal. So
right, okay, fair enough. So back at Jabba's palace, not place. It's not just Jabba's place. It's Jabba's palace. And Boba and Fennec are hosting the crime bosses for dinner. Weird that this wasn't set up in any way. Like there wasn't like they weren't going to mention that this was going to happen. Anyway, doesn't matter. But so the Trandoshans, the Aqualish, and the Klatooinians are there. And in fact, the Klatooinian boss, played by Phil Lamar, long time, great voice actor, been in things like Justice League. Has voiced, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I know he's voiced characters in Clone Wars. So,
okay.
Long-time Star Wars guy, too. Great actor. Cool to see him here under, obviously, a lot of makeup and prosthetics. Fennec,
he kind of looked like the Grinch a little bit.
A little bit.
Me.
Yeah, like a gray, the
Grinch.
Yeah.
I think it was just the nose that kind of bugged me, and I was like, they could have made it a little less
the Klatooinians are kind of a weird-looking, like, dog species, so it's kind of odd,
they are weird-looking.
So Fennec starts off the whole thing by reminding everyone about how Boba killed Bib after Jabba was killed. And she says, like, you were all captains under Jabba before leaving the family after his death. And you all tried to replace Bib but failed. So, look, here we are now, right?
Right.
And Boba tells them that he has no designs on their territory. Listen, I don't want to encroach. Instead, he'd like their help with the Pikes, who have, quote-unquote, absorbed Tatooine as part of their spice trade.
Right.
And so this, I think, is supposed to be very similar to the scene from The Godfather where they're meeting with the different heads of the crime families and the drug trade comes up. So this is like very much supposed to be like that. The Godfather did it better, but hard to top one of the best known movies of all time.
Yeah.
So they're talking about the spice trade, and at first they're not interested. They're like saying, hey, listen, we make lots of money from people selling spice in our territory, right? And why shouldn't we just kill you and take what we want, right? And so Boba responds by showing his power a little bit with his new Rancor under the table. Good power move, by the way, to set up the table on top of the Rancor pit.
So amazing.
I think that's pretty cool. So they all stand up. They're like, whoa, this guy means business. They all sit back down, and he decides to reframe the argument a little bit. Like, okay, now that we've all got our grandstanding out of the way, let me actually tell you what I'm talking about, okay? He proposes that all the families of Mos Espa join in a defensive alliance against the Pikes. But they're not... They're like, no. They once again also say no to this. They're not having it. They don't want to risk their own people in a war that they see is just between Boba and the Pikes. Right? So Boba then says, okay, fine. I'll fight the war alone. Listen, it is my fight. I'll do it. But all I ask is that you don't betray me. You stay neutral in the fight. Right?
Yeah.
And they seem to agree to those terms. Pretty cushy for them, by the way.
Yeah, they're like, okay, we just don't do nothing.
Do anything. Cool. Yeah. Change nothing, do nothing, just don't betray Boba. That's the only ask. And of course one of them's gonna.
Oh, they
right?
are. Absolutely.
One of them, at least one. So that seems fine. There's a shot of them kind of leaving. It's kind of very pretty. And then after dinner, you have Boba and Fennec talking, and he's talking about how he doesn't trust them, but, quote, I trust them to operate in their own self-interest, and that his deal is, quote, better than what the Syndicate would offer.
Right.
Now, I was like, is the deal to do nothing better than the deal the Syndicate would offer? I guess his thinking is that, well, the Pikes will eventually take over the whole planet. So you either help me deal with them now by not doing anything, or you work with them and eventually get pushed out.
That's kind of I'm assuming that's what he's thinking, because it's like, okay, they can either do nothing, and best case scenario, Boba can get them out of there, and then their territories don't get taken, or their territories can get taken by the Pikes. So it's like you either join the Pikes and they take your territory, or you do nothing about them and they take your territory, or you let Boba fight them with no consequence, and maybe you'll get to keep your
It's kind of silly, actually, when you play it like that. It's like, you really not convince them. There's no other argument. Could you not just lay that out in front of them and be like, whatever. So maybe they just don't. They're just like, we just need to keep the show more streamlined. So there's this fucking line. It's so stupid. He's like, by the way, we need to prepare for war. I'm like, what? What do you mean, by the way? What do you mean, by the way? You just had a whole conversation. You just spoke. We were just talking about that. Yeah. What are you talking about? By the way? Anyway, I thought that was the stupidest line I've ever heard in Star Wars. It's up there. Misa grant emergency powers is maybe slightly less dumb.
Oh my god,
So, we so stupid. By the way, we need to prepare for war. So apparently he has lots of credits, but he has no muscle. So he's recruited some more, Black Chrysanthemum. He's got his Grimorian guards. He's got those mod gang. So he's got something going on, but he's like, that's not going to do it, right? So they're like, well, credits can buy you muscle if you know where to look, and then the Mando theme plays. So the implication here is that we'll see the Mandalorian show up next episode. But it's
that would be pretty cool.
It's gonna happen, and it's gonna be pretty cool. But like, I guess what I'm wondering is, you're gonna spend all your money, you're gonna bring in one guy? He's just one guy. That's all you like.
Maybe they'll bring in all the Mandos. Maybe they'll be like, "Hey, we'll fight the Pikes here, but then you got to come back to Mandalore and fight our shit too."
That might be that would be interesting. I guess we don't know where he sits after Mando season 2, right?
Yeah,
so
not really. So
is he with like Bo-Katan and them, or what's the how's that working out? I guess we'll find out.
I guess we shall see.
We shall see, indeed. Any final thoughts here as we bump up again? We're actually over time here, but any final thoughts on this episode?
No, I don't think so. I honestly think we covered pretty much everything that was in my brain about this episode. So some things that we liked, some things we maybe kind of didn't, but
where would you rank this so far in terms of episodes of the season?
2 is still my favorite.
Oh, it's so good, yeah.
But it was better than 1 and 3. So I don't know, my second favorite episode, I guess. I don't know.
I would say it's exactly the same. It's number 2 is the best one, then this one, then the first episode, then the third episode.
I would agree with that.
So yeah. Anyway, I just think this show's a bit of a mess. I like a lot of individual elements that are being presented here. Of course, I love seeing the fire spray gunship, for lack of a better name, currently
Yeah.
back again. That's awesome. It's satisfying to see the Sarlacc pit destroyed, despite that scene being really fucking stupid. I like a lot of stuff here, but I'm just a little weirded out by how we got here. Like I just feel like we could have done. I feel like we could have done this better. And
Gotcha.
if we're done with the flashbacks and we're gonna have now 3 episodes of just contemporary timeline, it might be maybe that'll smooth things out. Maybe
I was just
sand off some
of
these rougher edges by just
it will be a little bit
traditional
tidier.
storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be tidier the next few episodes because we're not having to jump back and forth and be like, oh, this is how that happened and da 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 da. Like now we can just be like, okay, now we can just get into it. So
I would also say that if you're gonna throw around the word war in Star Wars, I think there's got to be some spectacle. Like war isn't 20 guys fighting 20 other people. That's not a war. like you know what I mean. Like so.
Pikes are
I would
big,
like to see. I would let and I guess I suppose they're using war in kind of the Godfather sense, right? When crime families are at war, it's not the same as a war. So it's a little bit different. But I would like to see a little bit spectacle here. If we're dealing with, if the Pikes are really going to bring in the big guns or whatever, I'd like to see who's in charge of the Pikes right now. How's that, like, what's their thoughts on this? If we're bringing in the Mandalorian, like, and what does that mean? Like, are we going to be distracting from Boba Fett's story by having more of this larger story? I would hope not. Like, let's kind of just, we've been doing all these side stories this whole time, like these flashbacks, and now it's going to be like, oh, we're gonna have a whole scene, and it's probably gonna be cool. Like, we're gonna hear about what he's been up to or whatever. But he primarily should be a side character here. So, like Boba Fett was in The Mandalorian season 2. But
yeah,
I don't know if I have the confidence that they'll be able to do that. I have some concerns, but overall, I am enjoying the ride. I hope most people are.
Me too.
And we'll see what's going on here as we go. All right. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up
here?
here?
We can wrap up.
Alrighty then. So, thank you everyone for listening. As always, we'll be back next week with Season 1, Chapter 5, whatever that might be called. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter at TowerBabbleCast, Facebook.com/TowerBabbleCast, and head over to the website, TowerBabble.ca, to find everything that we do. And we'll be back next week with more. May the Force be with you.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.